Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. This week, I have a special guest. There's nothing I enjoy more than um, taking a trip down memory lane, to the music that I grew up on that honestly put a smile on my face. And this week's guest, she definitely played a factor in my childhood being so pleasant, with hits such as Walk On By, Don't Make Me Over, Falling in Love, The Love I Lost, Crazy for
Ah,
You.
you went to memory lane. Yeah.
Yes, Let It Rain on Me All Night. Lovely Day.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah.
We
There are a
got
lot there are a lot of songs going on.
oh yeah, and she had a voice of an angel, still has a voice of an angel.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
we have Sybil. Welcome to the show, Sybil.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, LeTroy. I appreciate this. This is so special. You went back into the archives. You went back to I'm talking about off the first album cuts.
Hmm.
Yeah. Back in the day, 1987. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, those were the glory days. I think I was in like first grade,
Stop it.
but
You were young. Stop it.
yeah. I before the interview already got kind of clowned about the Duke hoodie, but you
Clown
know,
you. I didn't clown you. I didn't clown you. But when you're in North Carolina, that rivalry is something. But see, I'm an
it's deep.
HBCU grad, so my
Hmm.
rivalry is a little different. We look A&T and Central. That's the rivalry
Uh huh.
for us. Yeah.
All right. So, like, did you play in a band at A&T?
No, I was very active in student government. Was very active in my sorority. I was a North Carolina Fellow, which was a leadership academic honor program at A&T. And so I was busy with the business of helping students' voices be heard. Pretty much most of the time I was there. And I was Miss North Carolina A&T in 1984, 85.
Okay.
So I was very active.
Right. And taking it full circle, you were actively involved in homecoming this past year as well, right?
What did you say? It broke up. I think, what did you ask me, LaTroy?
I was saying you were actively involved in homecoming this past year, right?
Yeah, I was the Grand Marshal this year, and I was so excited for the 99th edition of the greatest homecoming on earth. Absolutely. It was great. Yes.
Yeah. All right, cool. So, like, take us back to the beginning, to Paterson, New Jersey. Growing up, like, just walk us down memory lane, like the experiences growing up there. And did you grow up singing in church? Like, when did you first, your parents first recognize that you had this gift?
Yeah, it's funny because I grew up in a house where music was always present. And my family, my mom's side in particular, were singers. They sang, and I grew up singing in church. Then I grew up singing in musical theater, high school stuff, and then in college singing. And so in Paterson, I remember singing at open mic nights and just kind of doing that, and it was just a lot of fun. I did not anticipate, I will say this, that I'd be a singer, a professional singer. I just enjoyed singing. I enjoyed music, and it started at church. It started at St. Luke Baptist Church in Paterson, New Jersey, and but I grew up listening and hearing music because my mom and dad both loved all types of music. And so in my household, we had music. And then, of course, the backyard parties. Patterson, we are a tight knit community. And so
Hmm.
on certain, everybody had their thing. And so we had a lot of backyard jams, and it would be family, and it would be music, and it would be singing. It would be, I mean, people would be just celebrating just for the sake of being together. And that's what I remember. So I remember music always being present. And it wasn't just one type of music. And then I remember spending summers down east in eastern North Carolina in Halifax County, where all you heard was gospel and country.
Hmm.
from the radios anyway. And so any other music you heard was because you were at your family's house. And that was really interesting. So growing up for me, my exposure to music and that creative part of and kind of integral part of who I am started very young, and it was just kind of organic. It was not anything that they had to make. I didn't have to, they say you got to listen to this or you got to do that. It wasn't that. It was, we just were always surrounded by music.
Hmm. Cool. So, like, was music your first love? You knew from the beginning that you always wanted to get into music, or there was another path that you wanted to follow?
Was No, music was something that I enjoyed doing, but I loved words. I've always been a relatively strong writer, and ironically enough, I end up doing successful off of a lot of covers. But in any event, I'm a strong writer and always have been. So, writing was always a big thing, and I always thought I was going to be an attorney. I tell everyone I wanted to be a lawyer. I was always a very radical. My thinking was radical as a young person, and I remember my mom being in a group called Women Active in Community Affairs, and I remember listening to the conversations. And so for me, I always thought that I was going to be an attorney because I felt as if there was a lack of representation. As I got older, I realized this: a lack of representation for women and for people of color and for those who economically did not have access to the resources that some. And so that was my plan. I wanted to be an attorney, but music was always there. And I think that because it was always there and because it was such a kind of a natural part of who I was, it was like, it was nothing for us to get together and have a jam session just for the sake of sharing a song. We would be there I go, there I go, there I go, there I go. Everybody, that stuff, I would do that with my dad and my uncles and my aunts because that was classic, jazz. So when I listened to the OJ's Family Reunion, Stairway to Heaven. So when I listened to music, it always took me to a place, a happy place. It always took me to a time and reminded me of times when we were celebrating and sharing each other, sharing love amongst each other. Yeah, music was, I don't know if it was my first love. I think my parents were my first. I absolutely loved my parents. I loved my mom and dad were just good people. And so, as corny as that may sound, it's just knowing that I was safe. My first love was knowing that was in a safe place with mom and dad, with my mom and my dad. And so, and then they introduced me to music. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
so that's how that got started. Yeah.
Yeah. So those road trips from New Jersey to North Carolina, like what, like what song were you singing? Because I know, like, I can't sing, but me and my brother, when we would go on road trips, like
Yeah.
every time a song would come on the radio, like we would take turns. This my song.
Yeah,
This my
well,
brother's song.
it's so funny. I'm going to tell you a funny. Okay, we
Huh?
would we would just be cutting up in the car, and so whatever came on the radio that we knew, we would sing. But in terms of radio, it was different traveling back then. I mean, it wasn't like you have satellite radio. It was just a little different. So we had 8 tracks, okay, and tape cassettes playing in
Uh
the
huh.
car. So it was we might have been listening to Bobby Womack. We might have been whoever my dad, mom, whoever they put in is who we were listening to. But we were sing along. Marvin Gaye was a big part of my life. Marvin Gaye growing up was a very very big part of our story growing up and traveling. And so, but the funny thing I would tell you, I had a cousin and I love her. She lives in Virginia Beach. Marva couldn't sing a lick. And but she loved to sing but couldn't sing a lick. And she would sing we the whole time. And my dad at the end of the trip, she said she was kept singing this song oh God, something fire this time. Something about fire, and she kept singing it over and over and over. And by the time we got to Virginia Beach, Dad looked and he said, Marv, I'm ready to throw you out of my car because that's the only song that she really, really knew. So, needless to say, singing, yeah, we sung in the car, and they would be horrible songs, and some of them would be children's songs, but we sang whatever was put on the 8 track, put in the Nova, in the Cadillac. Okay, that's what we sang. Yeah.
All right. Was it like was it Field of Fire? Stephanie
No.
Mills
Oh
or
no, that was later. Feel the Fire was later. No, it was
okay.
it was a my view of fire this time. Oh God, it's a Oh my God, she sings, it's gonna come to me. And when it does,
Yeah.
we're just gonna start singing. But
Okay.
Marva would, she kept singing that song over and over. Oh, it's gonna rain, to believe it's gonna rain. You better get ready, because it's gonna rain. She sang that for 3.5 hours.
Ooh.
Okay. So then
Somebody would have got thrown out the car.
she almost did. So it was so funny. That was a song. And my and my brother who was into hip hop, he would do that. He would like pretend he was scratching. So it was funny, but it was probably driving my father crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
All right. Cool. So, what led you to becoming an Aggie?
Let me tell you, sir, I had a full ride to Rutgers, okay, but I'm a Jersey girl, and I did not want to stay in New Jersey to go to school. I came to visit. I actually came to visit my aunts. My aunt, two of my aunts and my uncle graduated from North Carolina Central. Okay, and so of course they you're going to go visit. You're going to go visit Central, and I said, oh, okay, because growing up in I went to Catholic high school. They didn't introduce us to historically Black colleges and universities. That was not an option. So our family pretty much were responsible for bringing us and introducing us to the idea of an HBCU. So I ended up visiting Central, and then my other aunt went to Winston-Salem State, and then I had one at Fayetteville State. But we were so close in proximity to A&T. She said, let's go by there. And when I went by, and I went first off, I'd already made up my mind that Central was not going to have this person right here, not
Right.
gonna happen. No disrespect, but it was too small for it was too small. It was not quite in line with where I saw myself. And so when I went to visit A&T, I don't know, that day seemed like there were the most beautiful Black people out and about. They were adorned in their paraphernalia, and they were, in their A&T gear. And it was just like, I thought, okay, this is really cool. And then I started seeing some of the fraternity men, and I thought,
Oh.
thought,
It won you over, huh?
okay. I, I was,
It, you were
it was,
sold.
I was, yeah, I was sold, and I did, I did go and visit they did arrange for me to go meet with one of the directors or deans of the School of Arts and Sciences. And I went over, and I really liked her a lot. And needless to say, I had, I literally applied and got accepted like almost within a very short period of time. And so my father said, look, this is where you want to go. Okay. We had to pay out of state tuition, of course. And so it wasn't like I was going to Rutgers on a full ride. We had to pay, but I ended up doing really well in school, and I was able to, to get monies to scholarship money my last year. So I became an Aggie, and I'm a proud Aggie. I support my alma mater because I believe that it was something that I needed. And I understand HBCUs are not for everyone. However, when you are the lone Black girl in a math class and an English class, when you are the lone, you need it just does something to you when you're ready to go to college. I was like, I did not want that same experience. I wanted a different experience because I knew that I was bright, or and I knew that I had the aptitude to be able to compete, academically with pretty much anyone, especially when I put my, put it on out there. However, I needed a different kind of experience, college experience, and the HBCU experience. It was what I needed, and it just kind of made me who I am, or helped to develop what was already there.
Right.
Yeah.
um, I have a similar story. My alma mater, Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Um, I went there for a tour, and I heard that it was an 8-to-1 ratio of, and I was sold at that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. Well, it's funny because Winthrop, my cousin got her graduate degree from Winthrop. So
Okay.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I love the Eagles.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so like in this timeline, um, from from the time you graduated from A&T to getting discovered and working with CC Rogers and signing the next plateau, what was that time frame?
1.5 years.
Wow.
Let me say this literally. I graduated. I graduated in '85. I had a deal in 1986, and it was not planned. I mean, I was singing on the weekends with CC and just doing, I'm really honestly doing gigging with the band. And the funny thing, I was the only one with a real job out of college. I actually got a job out of college as an editor and a proofreader for a publishing company. So I said, look, just pay me what it cost me to get here in gas. You all, split whatever you're getting paid, because I just really enjoyed the camaraderie, and I enjoyed the outlet. And so I didn't, that was a full-time job for them. It was not a full-time job for me. And so the timeline was, I would say that really, so I first signed October of 1986, my first record, Falling in Love. The story goes that they had this track, and the label liked the track, and they kept saying, but they said, but you need a vocalist on it. You need someone on this track to sing on this track. The track is okay, but so I ended up putting one of my high school friends. He said, I need you to come to the studio, blah, blah. I said, I'm not, nope, nope, nope. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm studying for the LSAT. I'm not interested. And I ended up being tricked into going into the studio because they said that they wanted me to write a song for a girl group. That's what happened. And I went down there, and James Bratton, who was the producer and writer of Falling in Love, the first record I ever did, he goes, we're talking. He goes, okay, well, let me hear you sing. And I'm looking, I said, why do I need to sing? I'm supposed to be writing. And when he said to me, he said, oh, you must not be able to sing. And when he said that, my little ego, my little A&T Aggie ego, and my Paterson Aggie ego,
Uh-huh.
ego went, you know, I said, what? I said, give me these words. And then because I said, let me listen to the track. And literally almost instantly that what Falling in Love, what you hear was probably done in one or two takes, period. Um, because it was just like the innocence of it. And I think that's what I liked. It was innocent. I was just kind of, singing. I saw the words. I'm like, oh, okay, I can relate a little bit. And the innocence of it. So it was not a long time frame for me graduating with a degree and going into the music industry. And let me say this, I worked for probably a year, another year after I got there. I worked because I was like,
Hmm.
I am not cutting this. I know this is coming, and I was so uncertain about the music business, and didn't know what that really looked like. So I worked for the publishing company for another year while I had a record deal. And when it became impossible to not do the traveling is when I made the decision in 1987 to say, you know what? I think might be time. And it's because I had a 3-month contract that had been offered for me to travel around the UK to sing. And off of Falling in Love, then Let Yourself Go. And so, boom, had to go. And
Yep.
yeah.
Duty calls. So so falling in love, it became a massive hit. Um, when you heard it on the radio for the first time, what was your reaction?
I screamed. I not no lie. I totally lost it. I was in the car actually leaving from New York, from the office in New York. And when I heard it on WBLS in New York City, um, and then I think I subsequently heard it on Kiss FM. It blew my mind. It was mind boggling. And then the number of people who kept calling and calling, at that time it was pagers. Okay. I didn't have a cell phone. It was a
Uh-huh.
pager, and then the house phone, they left messages on the house phone it was surreal because it was just, I thought, is this for real? Like I could not have planned it better. I did not anticipate again that I'd ever be a professional singer. I was like, no, mm-mm. But when I heard the record on the radio, and even now, it's so funny. Even now, I get excited when I hear my songs on the radio. I do, because it's like, to me, as a person, it's like that. That's going to live on even when I'm gone. It may not play as regularly, but it will be somewhere. Somewhere they'll be able to hear my voice. My family members will be able to, and they'll say, "That's my so and so," because I do it. With people that I'm like, oh, So I get excited because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, your music is a time capsule, I
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and I like that. I like that time capsule. It's pretty cool.
Hmm. So like 86, um, like freestyle was starting to bubble.
Mhm.
People like Lisa and Cold Jam.
Yeah.
Um, so like, was it intentional for you to, blend dance and R&B and soul? Um,
It was not intentional. I think, let me tell you something. The thing is that even Falling in Love, we did not anticipate that Falling in Love was going to be a dance or a house record, considered a house record and or a dance record, because the BPMs are not, they're not, they just weren't. But it was such a strong and well received record. DJs loved the song, and it seemed to mesh well with what was happening. Like you said, it was like the Lisa and the Cult Jam. It was the Cover Girls. It was a bunch of, like you said, that freestyle stuff, and it was nestled nicely with the soul stuff that was happening at the time. And so for me, we didn't plan it. My thing was I was always really adamant about making sure that that I was vocally giving a vocally clean performance. I never ever really wanted to sound. I kind of took a page out of Donna Summer's book. It's like I'm a black a black artist, but I wanted my audience to be more than just us. And I thought that that was really incredibly important, because I grew up in a very diverse, I mean, that's a word that they want us to stop using, but I grew up where diversity mattered and, or was significant. And so being able to have a voice in rooms and or places where people that didn't look like me, but they were like, I love that song and they're singing along. I tell people, I said, when I travel the world, my audience is depending on where I am. You talking about the UN? It is like the United Nations. I mean, they come. I do a lot of work in the UK. I do a lot of work in the Philippines. I do a lot of work in parts of Africa, and it's really interesting, the breakdown, and of course the U.S. So it's interesting to me, how 1986, 1987, like you said, that freestyle, that was the era, and that was a time, and I did a lot of work with those artists because we did a lot of radio shows. A lot of At that time, a lot of the radio shows were doing these big tours and concerts, in their area, and so I got to experience music from different types of artists, but we worked well together.
right. So I
Hmm.
mean, you're talking about how the international scene gravitated towards your music. Like, was there a point? I mean, and we can fast forward down the road in your career. Was there a moment where you and the label just noticed that the UK or Europe and Japan is Philippines is where um, you're making your bread and butter, and the music is having more staying power?
And I think that has yes. Of course it went. It was not. It didn't go unnoticed, and that's why we had multiple types of albums. Like I had two albums that were released. Some of them had the same songs and some of them didn't, because the territory and the markets were calling for different things. So that was one of the things I loved about the idea of the independent. I think the shift in my career came when my independent label thought that I needed to be with a bigger label, but the bigger label had no idea what to do with me.
Hmm.
Polygram had no clue as to what to do with me because they weren't used to an artist like me. And the head of at the time was a European, a guy, a German guy who he probably could have told you all about rock and roll and heavy metal and all, but he had no clue as to how to cultivate an artist like me. And to Eddie O'Loughlin's, he meant good. He really meant well. And I think he thought that they would do the right thing. But ultimately, I think that that shift kind of impeded my ability to put records out as quickly, because if we would hear something was hot in an independent environment, you hear something was hot, you could have that record turned around, within a matter of a week or two. When you're in a large mainstream, you have to schedule it for this and do it was just too much. And so I love that about the independent environment. And like I said, the shift for me was when they thought that they were doing something, a good thing, but the good thing only worked when you had people who were on board who got it, and then and for a while it worked because I had some really cool, I had some really cool street team that were out all over the US. And so I was able to work, but it was just different. It was just very different. But yeah, so I ended up, let me say this, because of it, I ended up having licensing deals in these territories. So I was with, with different labels, with Sony in one area, Octo Arts International in another, Universal. So it really, so I ended up having licensing deals that helped me to be able to make a living, and do well, because they did see me as a commodity, a hot commodity at the time.
Yeah. And you still perform overseas to this day?
Oh, to this day, I will be going back in May. And I look, I go to the West Coast a lot for the Filipino community. I do a lot with them because they are big fans. And I'm gonna say this: the difference between the U.S. and other countries is that you are not in the U.S. You're as good as your last hit, or what they're hearing. In those countries, legacy artists get a lot of respect and get loved up on, and there are artists that like Shalimar. I worked with Shalimar, and I worked with Rose Royce, and I mean these are Edwin Starr when he was alive. I mean, just a lot of artists. Alexander O'Neill. They have staying power in these outside of the U.S. And so my thing is, you go where you're loved on, and you go where you're appreciated, and the realities are that you've got to make a living. You've got to make a living doing something. My blessing is that I have other things that I fall back on that I have been able to tap into. And so I always tell people I don't move in desperation to perform and to work the road, because as I've gotten older, I realized, number one, my parents were getting older, and I did not like being away like that. And I lost my dad when he was 84. My mom is 84 now. And so I opt to have a life in God. I think God grants us what he knows we need. And so I believe that my plate, when I travel, I'm very intentional about it. And I plan, I plan to do and plan to, and I just plan it. And the college, they know me. So when they say, "Where are you going now?" When I say I'm going to be gone for, they're like, "Okay, where are you going now?" Because I take vacations, but they generally know that I like paid vacations. And so I take advantage of them paying me to get somewhere. And then I enjoy the activity on other people's dime. So there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
All right. All right. So like you put your stamp on some Dionne Warwick classics like Walk On By and Don't Make Me Over. Um,
Yes. Yes.
was she a huge influence?
Growing up, you had no, let me say this. And she also, her voice, think about it. Dionne Warwick's audience were predominantly white for a long time, predominantly white early on, because Hal David and Burt Bacharach were the writers and producers of her music. And so, of course, they wrote with their constituents in mind. However, she had just enough soul, you know, uh, to have us, and my ancestors to be like, yeah, my mom, my dad, my aunts, my uncles, to embrace. My mom uh, remembers her as a teenager and singing with the New Jersey had like a big youth uh, chorus, and everybody talked about her, and the fact that how good she was. And so, yes, she was an influence. But I think it was the songs. The truth of the matter is, Walk On By, I was excited to do Walk On By because I was familiar with it. When they told me about Don't Make Me Over, I was like, I had no clue of that song. Okay. No clue. And then of course, the history came. It was her first hit record in 1960. I wasn't born yet. So, and it wasn't a song that I had heard, in any iteration of itself. Walk On By, I'd heard other people's versions of Walk On By. So, of course I gravitated, but it was Walk On By. It was Don't Make Me, Walk On By I had recorded, but it was Don't Make Me Over that kind of set the wheels in motion, because the label said, "We just see you doing this song." And I fought it. But I remember when I told them, I said, "I'm sorry, it's too sappy." And at that time I was traveling quite a bit to the UK, and I'd heard Soul to Soul. And I was like, yeah, I said, I said, "I like this song, but you need to make it sound like this."
Okay.
That
I was gonna ask you. I was like, because it
yeah.
sounds like Jazzy B production.
Yes, yes. And it stemmed, and so it was some soul kids from Liverpool who did the remix, and they listened to what I said because I said, look, it was a group called Tongue in Cheek, that I loved. So there were some soul groups out of the UK that I was loving, and that vibe was what I wanted. And so when they did that, it was like boom. I was good. I was good at that point. So it got a facelift because at that point I had been traveling. Of course, I'd been traveling back and forth to the UK, between the UK and the US, and I was like, I was feeling that UK soul. I really was. Yeah.
All right, so you coin it giving it a facelift.
Yeah.
So like, what's your approach to remaking iconic songs like that, like Jackson 5, "Wanna Be Where You Are," and Bill Withers' "Lovely Day." Um,
Well, first off, I don't sing any songs that I don't really have an affinity for in the first place. Bill Withers was a big an artist in my home. His records played in my house, okay, in the house I grew up in. So I loved Bill Withers, and he kind of looked like he could have been related to me. So I always thought, oh, he looked like he could be my uncle. So that type of thing. So and then of course, I Want to Be Where You Are. Who didn't like the Jackson 5? It's just like, but I remember going into the studio singing. I said, good Lord, Michael was singing high. It was so high. And so I remember saying to them, I'm like, can we change this key? He was a little boy and I was a grown, and even with a woman's voice, I was sitting there thinking, this is high, but it was a song that I absolutely loved. And so I think embracing songs that means something to you and then interpreting them to fit who you are is really the gift. I think some people make songs just to cover them, but they don't really have an affinity for them. It's just like I'm making that song, because they say that it's a good song to cover. No, I don't think so. And so every song that I've approached, that I've covered, is a song that I can relate to something that's really special and or significant to a time in my life and or situations in my life.
mhm. Has any of the artists that you've given a facelift to their music reached out to you and it was like, job well done, or
Well, Dion gave me the thumbs up, especially when the
uh,
record went gold. She did. She did. I said I was laughing because I think she was on a podcast with some other people, and she made a comment that she said I loved it, but she sang it in the wrong key. No, I sang it in the key that worked for me and the groove that I was. Okay, Miss Dion, love you, but okay. When you cover a song, you don't want to, you got to do it, based on a number of variables. And so that was an issue, but did get thumbs up, from her, for that. And so, and Bill Withers, yeah, no, I think he might have been, I don't know anyway, no, but I would have loved that. I would have loved that. Okay. I would have loved that. Yeah. And of course, no, not the Jackson 5. I didn't hear anything from Michael, Randy, Tito. None,
man,
right. None of them. Marlon. I didn't get a call from them,
you
but,
have to go down 2300 Jackson Street.
exactly. And I'll be knocking on the door and they'll be looking at me like, okay, nobody's here.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we got the Dion biopic coming soon.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Tiana Taylor
Yeah.
will be playing Miss
And I
Dion.
can see that. I'm not being funny. I saw that even before I heard that,
Hmm.
because I remember looking at her thinking, gosh, she's got the same kind of features, and yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I like Tiana Taylor. I was sitting and thinking, I said, I'm not mad at you, dear heart. She's, I'm happy for her and her success.
Yeah, that's a good choice, I feel,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
even with everything that she's doing, like music wise, acting, directing, like she's a total package. So
She is.
yeah,
She
I think
is.
it's gonna be a beautiful work.
Dr. Todd McLean provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338 or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
All right, so like your label mates, Salt and Pepper, you collaborated with them. Crazy for you. You hopped on Black's
Independent.
Magic and did
Yeah.
Independent.
Yeah. I did.
Um,
I did. Yeah.
How was that experience? Because I know that was fun. Because Pepper is always seems to be the
She's
life of the
always
party.
she's always at 100. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Cheryl was all Cheryl and I probably were personality wise were probably more alike. And that's who I worked with for the most part, to be honest with you, in the studio. When we did, I was away. I was working when they did their part of the song, Crazy for You. And it was funny because I'll never forget, they said to me, there's a rap part in the song. And I said, and I was like, this is me. And I said, what am I supposed to do with that? Look, let me say one thing about me. I play to my strengths. Okay. The one thing I cannot do is
That's right.
rap. Okay. I cannot rap. And I was not going to try because I give respect because it's a certain kind of cadence and, and countenance that has to happen that rhythmically, I'm too rhythmic in a different way. And I can't get that. No. So what happened is they wanted me to, Cheryl in particular wanted me to hop on Independent. So I went in the studio and then I was doing some BVs on the songs, some of the songs for them. And she asked me about Independent and I said, okay, I got an idea. If I do this for you, can you do this for me? And that's how we ended up I had them on Crazy for You. And then I ended up on Independent because that kind of was in production, before I ended up doing the Crazy for You track. But it was a lot of fun. I absolutely loved working with them. We ended up doing a benefit. I'll never forget. We did a benefit for Texas Children's Hospital, and I remember going through the mall, and they were sitting eating, and I was walking, and Cheryl called me, called me, she said, Sybil, come here. So we were just talking, and she said, she thanked me, and I really appreciate it. She said, I want to say thank you. She said, you were always just so nice to us, and just down to earth and always made us feel, like you just made us feel good about us. And she said, if anybody, this was so funny, if anybody ever said anything bad about you, she goes, they'd have to fight me. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And so I've always been a person, I feel as if when you treat people right and you show them respect and show them love, you'll get that back. And so I don't go around. I've had some experiences with some artists that have been horrible, but you'll never know about it. You never know it because it's pointless. What does it do for me because it's going to show up in other places. If it showed up for me, it's going to show up in other places. But Salt and Pepper, Cheryl and Sandy, cool, and love Spin, so I'm, yeah. And I'm going to say, fast forward, my cousin Maxine is a member of In Vogue. And so when they met, it was really cool because they were like, Cheryl was like, I love Maxine. So needless to say, it was really a cool kind of how the synergy, how it worked and then came together for them as well. So it was, it was fun.
So you didn't play a hand in making that collaboration take place?
I did not. I'd be lying and my nose would grow like Pinocchio if I told that lie. No, In Vogue was just hot at the time, and that was, and they recognized each other and what each other could bring, and so that was just a smart move by the label, period.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's good to see Maxine back with Cindy and Terry.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I interviewed Dawn several years ago. I might be the reason why she's not part of the group because she was saying a lot of crazy stuff in that conversation. So
yeah, but you know what? The thing is that you wouldn't have been the only one she was saying it to. And I think sometimes you seal your own coffin with the stuff that you said. That's why I said you got to be mindful, and it's unfortunate because she can sing her face off. She's an absolutely gifted singer. But I also say that look at what happened in other groups that you know, that she was a part of. You gotta look at the common denominator in some things. And so I just wish her well, but I'm excited for my cousin Maxine. Maxine is really a sweet, when I say, not because she's my cousin, but when you talk about a pure heart, just a good person, Max is she's just a good heart. She's a good person, she's sweet. Yeah.
So, was there ever a collaboration in the works between the two of you?
Yeah, this is funny. We talked about when when she had stepped away from the group. We ended up doing a show together in Atlanta. They put us together. It was funny with Robin S. and CC Peniston. So we all in Atlanta, and so we talked about doing a project. We did. We thought, you know what? Why not? And we didn't know we were going to call it cousins. We didn't know what we were going, but we were having these conversations about doing the work. Yeah. So yes, there had been talks and discussions about us working together and come up with some real grown and sexy stuff. Adult music. Good old classic R&B. Or soul.
Uh-huh. So, like, if you were to form a group, it could be three. It could be three members. It could be four members. Who would
Okay.
you recruit? Dead or alive?
Okay.
Male, female? They could be any genre. Who would
Oh
you
my
Who would you
gosh.
add to your group?
Wow. That is a really, really good question. Well, if I wanted some hip hop flavor, okay, let me just say this. I'd bring KRS-One, period. From the hip hop, yeah, because I think that he would spit some stuff that would be real deep, and I'd love that. So from that would be, like the feet kind of, yeah, I would have KRS-One. Yeah, I would do that. In terms of sing, I am a major, oh gosh, and it would be for different reasons. It would be for different reasons. Vocally, uh, I loved Angie Stone because I always thought she was a dynamic writer, and I felt as if she would get the best out of. She would get some good stuff out of us. So I would say Angie Stone. Because I liked her when she was with Vertical Hold. So let me go there too.
Right.
Seems You're Much Too Busy was one of my favorite songs. And so I would say Angie Stone.
And she could
Um,
rap too. So,
yes, I know, absolutely. I would get Missy Elliott. I would get Missy. Um, and then I think that, oh gosh, this is hard. This is so hard. Um, and I don't want, oh my gosh, this is hard. Who do I, it can be male or female, right? Oh, I'd bring
mm,
Marvin Gaye on because I just want that pure old soul. Let me go there. So
okay.
I would do, okay, for women, I would have Angie Stone. I would have Marvin Gaye, Donny Hathaway, KRS-One would be rapping, okay? And then I would bring Layla Hathaway in. There we go. Boom, I'm good.
Okay. Making
That's
it a family affair. Okay.
I'd make it a family affair because the family run, that's a deep thread right there. That's a solid
Oh
thread.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
like even when they were doing the tribute at the Grammys to Roberta Flack,
Yes.
a few weeks ago, and she came out and sang her dad's parts. It was just like,
Yes. I
yeah,
love Layla.
yeah.
Look, let me tell you, there's a song that she has, and anybody, my friends who know, on her first album, "I'm Coming Back" is one of my favorite Layla Hathaway songs. Look, I'm a fan. I mean, not
Hmm.
being funny, I'm a fan. There are a lot of artists who I absolutely love. Like I love Lettuce. You've seen her. I love Eric Roberson. I love Gregory Porter. Just saw him again. There are people that I absolutely love to hear, and I can hear them over and over and over again. And we see Layla, Will Downing. But look, I'm a fan. I have no problem with fanning over people that yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. It
that
seems
would be my
like so I'm in the Miami area, and in a couple weeks there's the Jazz in the Garden. It seems like that's right up your alley.
that is
Is it
right up
just
my alley. I love those. I go to those types of look. I love outdoor, indoor, any door that I
Hmm.
open up and there's music playing. I am so there. So there. Yeah.
All right. So like on the third album, Civilization,
Civilizations.
um got me tongue tied here. Um you had background singers that ended up becoming pretty successful.
They
So
did.
how did Cassandra and Sharice from Changing Faces get on your radar?
It was funny because I was auditioning for background singers, and my publicist at the time had told me about, had brought some singers in, and there was something about them. There was something about them, and I liked them together. I liked them together. They vocally just meshed. It's like they almost like they were like one voice when I needed them, and so. They ended up working. Yeah, they ended up working with me, traveling with me. They traveled the world with me. We paid for their first demo. Okay. Before and actually we're going in a different direction for them. But someone convinced them that they should be doing, more kind of that hip hop R&B type stuff. And they did that track with R. Kelly. Do you mind if I stroke you up? And that I think that they wanted to go in that direction because of where they came from. They thought that would be more lucrative. But I will tell you this: there are some records that they had that we did on them that were absolutely stunning. I mean, just absolutely beautiful, and the arrangements were fabulous. Vocally, they were. I'll say this: vocally, you saw who they were on the records, of the demos that we have. You mind if I stroke you up? It's good, but that doesn't come close to really telling how vocally strong they are. They really are really great. They really are better singers to me than that record shows. It was a good record, but you know, I know there's so much more. And so yeah, but they were my little sisters, and we traveled, and they got introduced to parts of the world they had never been to. Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching the Apollo performance recently. So that's what really led to me reaching out. I was like, man, I've
Yeah.
been trying to get you on. We've been connected on LinkedIn forever. I was like, let
Yes.
me shoot my shot.
And it's so funny because people will ask me, they're like, is that changing faces? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. Um, and my thing is, let me tell you one thing about me. I do not believe in holding people back. I remember when they came to us, and I think they felt a little bit guilty because we had made financial investment in them, with studio time and a lot of product. And they'd worked with Michael O'Hare, and he had done some great works. But we were like, you know what? You got to let them go and do. We weren't in the business of holding people back, and we're happy for them. Do I think that was that they had more longevity had they gone a different route? Yes, I do. Yeah. But yeah, but I'm glad you reached out. I'm glad.
Uh-huh.
I appreciate the reach out. Yes.
All right. So you mentioned earlier in this conversation how the benefits of being on a smaller label and being able to put music out faster. Um, but just talk about how you changed between projects, and did you feel like you were outgrowing your sound at a point?
Oh yeah. Well, let me say this. What's unfortunate is that oftentimes you get pigeonholed. You get locked in to what other people's perception of what you can do, or what you should sound like, what you should sing, and it really becomes crippling. And I got to the point where I was like, let me just take a step back. Let me take a step back because my background, I ended up in a genre, or put into um, and to put into a genre that was not necessarily indicative of who I had become and was becoming.
Hmm.
And it bothered me. You know, um, Music was changing. I was changing. My life was, look, life was happening all around me. I needed to sing different. I needed to have different songs to sing. My message was different. What I was experiencing, um, played a part and played a role in what I was interested in singing about. And so, I mean, I remember doing a song called Open Up the Door, and it was about the homelessness that I had seen and experienced up close and personal, not only in the US, but in other countries. And I was sitting thinking, it's sad. It's like we see them on the street. I mean, said, it's like, and our gestures to them are not, they don't come from a place of love. And so I was saying, open up the door, meaning open up yourself to being receptive to the things that are not always pleasant, but they're real. And so those are the type, I was having those conversations. And so these are the types of songs I was interested in. I was interested in relationship type songs, but they were like more empowering, like I'm good, like I'm good kind of. They were more that. And so as I evolved, I felt as if, and let me say this, the music industry became so consumed with visuals that it lost sight of the real, that some people got lost, along the way. So if you didn't have hair weave down your back, if you weren't a certain color, if your complexion was too dark, and you weren't small enough, there were so many variables that played into the lack of success for some really, really gifted and talented artists. And it just bothered me. And I was tired. I was sitting there, I was a grown woman. I was a grown woman who was having a grown woman experience,
Mhm.
and so and life is happening all around you. You're supposed to pretend it's not. No. So I took a step back and I thought, let me lean on the other things that I know that I'm good at. And that was, as an educator, I'm really good at working with certain populations. And I found my voice again because of a mentor, and who pulled me into a college environment and said, I want you to run this program for me, this class for me. And I was like, I'm not a teacher. She said, yes, you are. You're a trainer. She said, you could do this with your eyes closed. And it's because she had seen me in other platforms. And so I found my voice differently, and where I was able to sow into the lives of young people who had a desire to maybe be in the music industry, but they needed to learn how to read and write. And so, and they would express that. And I said, well, we can have this discussion once you can give me a complete sentence. Subject. Okay. I need the subject. Subject verb agreement. I need some action. I need the sentence to tell me something. I need you to be okay. Subject verb agreement, subject predicate. I need that. I don't need the same old words. Tell me a story. Give me the story. And so in working with young people who had a desire to want to be rappers or singers, that's how I got them to write. I got them to start journaling and start speaking life into their own situations. And that was a high for me. I didn't need a bit of drugs. I didn't need any kind of alcohol. The high for me was finding a way to instill in someone who society had said, you're not going to be this, this, and this, because you must understand the first group of students that I had were age 16 to 24, and they were appointees from the Attorney General's office. And the courts said, you've got one of two options. You either go to school and you get a high school equivalency, or you come back to jail. And on my watch, jail was not going to be the option. And so I did what I had to do to try to instill in them a sense of personal, purpose. Not something that Miss Sybil says, but purpose, as outlined by what they shared with me. And so
Right.
me being in higher education was not intended, but I will tell you this, outside of music, it's equally as gratifying. I will tell you that, because when you look at students who have been on the fringe and been marginalized and pushed to the side suddenly come alive because they've earned a high school equivalency or GED, and then move on to get an associate degree. Okay. Let me tell you something. And then you get them a scholarship to go to a 4-year that they wanted to go to, but never thought that they could. And you help them find the money to get there. Let me tell you, that is a high that can't be replaced. Can't be
Right.
replaced. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lifetime achievement award within itself.
And I got a couple of them, thank God. I did. I'm so excited by, the blessings come. And I would say, and the thing is, I'm a woman of faith and I just trust the process because I trust my placement there's a reason why I'm still here. There's a reason why you're still here. There's a reason for it all. And I remember someone saying to me about, talking about faith, and being a religious person. I said, no, I'm not a religious person. I said, I have a relationship, with God, and that's different. I said, man decide they want to have a religion. I said, but my friends are Buddhists, they're Muslim, they're all over the place. Some of them don't believe. I said, but I respect that. And I said, and as a person, I said, because I know who I am and whose I am. And I said, and whatever works for them works, it makes them a decent person. I'm all for it. So I would have students who we would have these conversations because, they want you to separate church and state. So there's a way that you can introduce the concept of what's good, of something that's good. And I think good is good, love, kindness. Those are all terms that are just what I think anyone will want to be exposed to.
Um, how how do your students inspire you?
By continuing to fight, even, let me tell you something. Yeah, I will tell you a story. I was asked to take on to start a program, and I had a student, and he would come. He would come to class every day, and he was just I was the director of the program, so he was in, of course, multiple instructors of my classes, and so I'm in my office. They changed and asked me to start this program, so I was in my new role, and I hear a student yelling down the hall, Miss Sybil, Miss Sybil, he fell out, student fell out in the hallway. What we discovered was that he'd had a seizure. And in having that seizure, we also discovered that he hadn't eaten in 2 days. Also discovered that he had a prescription in his pocket for medication that he could not afford. All of this came out in this one situation. And I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, what do we do? So immediately, first off, I was like, I wanted to make sure he got something to eat. And then I said, well, can you give me the prescription? And when I tell you, it was almost like I went into a beast mode. I went into a whole different self. And the energy that it gave me to be able to help to plug the holes and to connect the dots for this student who was at risk of in so many ways. Because what I found out is he did have an EBT card, a SNAP card, or, a food stamp card. And because he was homeless, he had given the card to someone so that he could at least sleep on their couch. But then they wouldn't even let him eat the food that he provided off that card. So my heart, so it's moments like that when you realize that some people need people like me, like us, who will go in and advocate, help them understand what advocacy looks like. And sometimes we have to do it for them so that they know how to move forward. And that's what my students do. My students remind me that every situation is different because I work with adults, young adults, and young at hearts. Some who are coming back to get retooled. They worked, but they don't have the resume to allow them access to the new roles that this company says they have to have. Okay, that suddenly that high school diploma is not enough. Suddenly that training, that 20 years you put in there doesn't mean much. And so you got to come back to school. And so I get excited because I've got students that run from 16, well, even 14, because we have middle college, 14 to 75, some even slightly. And some of them are there because they just want to read better. The ones who are older, some of them just because it gives them an outlet, a social outlet, and they want to learn how to read better. And so what they do for me is remind me that everyone has a story, and that if we take the time to listen, maybe it will humble us enough to want to do something about and
Mhm.
put ourselves in the way in instances where we need to be in the way, and being in the way to help, not to hurt. So
Right.
that's what my students do for me. They remind me
Hmm.
that the work is never done, that
Yeah.
it's never done.
So do you feel like um, taking this chance and going the teaching route, did that um, bring you back into music, make you fall in love with music again?
Um, it did. Let me say that one of the things, it was actually, It was one of my students said, Miss, so why don't you sing anymore? And I said, I do. I sing every Sunday because I'm praise team facilitator at my church. So I said, I sing. They were like, no, 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 Miss Sib, no, no, I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And what happened was it reminded me that I still had that. And one of the things I would always say is I said, all of us are given multiple gifts, all of us. And if we don't work in them, we lose them. And so I started writing again, basically just started writing again. And then, of course, started singing again because I wanted to demo the songs that I was writing. And it was just like a euphoria that I needed. So for me, it's a balance now. It's I like the idea of being able to, because like I most recently a song called Cheers that I've done, and I'm excited about that because we did it and we put it away, and then we're bringing it back out. You know, I did it 2 years ago, but there's an interest in it, and so, but it's a song that I did celebrating the wins. You know, wins, how we are winning in spaces oftentimes that we're not supposed to be winning in, and overcoming in spaces where we're not supposed to overcome. So, yeah.
So, compare and contrast this person behind me to the person I'm talking to now.
The person behind you, very innocent and very naive to music being a business, and was just excited to have the opportunity to sing because she loved singing. She loved singing. Fast forward, the dash. Okay, we're in the dash now.
Uh-huh.
We're in the dash. She's self-assured, so well aware of what she did wrong, but doesn't use that as a regret. She uses it as a catalyst to move her further forward. So just more knowledgeable, more aware, more open, and more receptive, and more conscientious. Meaning, I probably would not have said what I wouldn't have said a lot of the stuff back then that I say today. I would not have had the confidence to sing them. And so, yeah, her innocence and her innocence allowed her access, but the wisdom has kept her here. Today, the wisdom of knowing that that was important, but we have to evolve and we have to shift and pivot to make things happen for ourselves. That's where I am today.
What's something about you that people would find most surprising?
Surprising. That I'm actually really an introvert. I am an extroverted introvert. I love, and I say that because people say, no, you're not, you're an extrovert, you're outgoing. I am outgoing. That I am. I love people and I love being around people. However, when life is happening for me and I need to process things, I become very, very introspective and I isolate myself to be able to process. And so that's why I say I'm an introverted extrovert. And that's one. But I love dogs. I love dogs. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a fur mama. I love dogs. They bring me peace.
What do you feel is your magnum opus? And that could be music, that could be being in the classroom, impacting lives,
Yeah.
wherever.
You know what? It's funny. My magnum opus would be waking up in the morning, putting my feet on the ground, and the devil saying, "Oh, she's up." because I move with intention and purpose in everything that I do. In everything that I do, so it's being intentional about my movements, being intentional about my movements in music and in higher ed, and in education and learning, training.
All right. Do you feel like you're unsung?
People have said that. They have said that. And I think to a certain extent, there's a lot of things that I feel as if, like I was one of the first artists that actually did a collab, R&B and hip hop collab. And then all of a sudden it became a thing, but they weren't doing it. They weren't doing that. There are, yeah, I think so. And I was one of the first artists after apartheid ended to go into South Africa, um, because my music was playing in the colored community, as they say. I didn't know what that meant until I went there. And so they call me a daughter of South Africa because I have very, very strong ties to that country and to its people. So, yeah, I think that it unsung, but the problem with that, and I say this because someone had approached my manager about it. I don't have enough mess. I did not experience some of the pitfalls. Drugs was not my thing. I didn't get abused, beat down. It's just, I don't have a story, but I feel as if they need to shift because I think people need to hear unsung, see some of the good, the highs, and it doesn't always have to be so negative. And so I would like to be part of an unsung that shares the stories like mine.
Hmm.
I had to pivot. It wasn't always great in the music industry for me, because I oftentimes felt as if because I did not fit the mold that I was, kind of pushed to the side and not considered for some things. Um, but I've had I've really kind of, I think, a blessed career because I always said I wanted to be famous enough to make enough money to live and survive, but not so famous that I couldn't walk the streets. And that's kind of where I am. That's what happened. It depends on where I am, though. Let me say that.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I said, when you go to Philippines or the UK, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure
Yeah,
they're
it's a
fanning
different,
out.
yeah, it's different. Yeah, it is different.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
I want to continue making music. And and I am doing music. I've got Cheers. I've got a song, called Intimate. I've got a song called Counselor that we're working on. I'm going to continue to write and continue to sing. I'm going to continue to feed, feed the souls, who want to be fed and do the work and love up on, groups of people who sometimes people have written off for, just because, they don't get them. And just be present and be present in any situation that I find myself in, like this. Stop, look, and listen. That's what I want to do. I want to stop. I want to look and I want to listen, because I think that it's important. I think I do, more than anything. I think that it's so important because we move, life goes on, regardless of whether we want it to or not. Life goes on, time passes. But what did you do when you stopped and you looked? Did you listen so that you could do something? And that's really kind of where I am. And so I love the name of the show. I love that, because it's a charge. It's really, it charges us to really be responsive and to be intentional. So when I talk about being intentional, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's a parting shot right there. Plus, I mean, you were singing the praises of the show's name, so
yeah.
I mean, that's a winner for me. But yeah, just plug where we can find you on social media.
You can find me, Sybil Sings, Facebook, Instagram. What's the other one that? Oh, TikTok.
TikTok.
Sybil Sings, okay? And it'll be this face, okay? And or some kind of variation of it with who knows?
Uh-huh.
But
Depending
I'm
on the
Sybil
day.
Sings, depending on the day, exactly. And I will actually, and then I actually have, in terms of agency with Exactia, IA out of the UK. Um, and you can we can stay connected. I mean, we can stay connected. Now, on LinkedIn, I'm Sybil Newman.
Yeah.
I'm another. Yeah, I
Well, that's my secret route. We can't give it away to too many people. Like
That's right. No, we don't want
that's
to.
my door. That's my
It's your
entryway.
door, and now you have a new door. You have a new
Okay.
door. You have a new door in. Yes, absolutely,
All right.
absolutely. And I'm not gonna hold. I'm gonna send you an A&T sweatshirt. You're gonna have to rep an A&T sweatshirt at
Yeah,
some.
I'll definitely wear it. I mean, I lived in Carborough. I lived
Yeah,
in Hall River, 25
yeah,
minutes away from Greensboro, so it's
yeah.
nothing.
I'm messing with you.
Yeah.
No, but I
Send it here. I haven't been
but I mean,
home. I haven't been to Carolina in a year and a half because I still have my
yeah,
house there, but I'm
yeah.
renting it out.
I got you. I got you.
I'm
Well, the
glad
funny,
y'all survived all of that cold weather.
I, that is, I'm from Jersey. You know, that was
Yeah,
a
that's
joke.
nothing. That's nothing.
That was a joke. But I will tell you, my aunt got her master's at Duke. So there you go. She went to Central, but got her master's at Duke, advanced degree at Duke. So there you go.
Good taste. Good taste.
Yes,
Well,
yes, yes, yes.
well,
So
Sybil,
this has been fun. This has been
it
fun,
has
but
been.
and I appreciate the time. I do, and I will let you know when I'm going to be doing anything in the Carolinas, and in New Jersey, and that neck of and in my home state. Okay, because
Okay.
you can get there. Okay.
Yeah, because you got a street named after you now.
I do. It's called Sybil Lynch Way in Paterson, New Jersey. Go check it out. It's on
Okay.
East 27th Street. It's East 27th Street, known as Sybil Lynch Way. Yes.
Yes. Well, Sybil, this has been an amazing conversation. I thank you. I thank you for blessing me with your time today, for the childhood memories that your music was a time capsule for all of the amazing work that you're doing, in the classrooms. Like you said, your music story didn't come to a tragic end. You were able to pivot, and now you're harnessing the talents of others. So, continued blessings to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. And I will continue to stop, look, and listen.
All right. And for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and
Thank you,
blessings.
LeTroy.